Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Energize Your Online Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, guys, today we are going to talk about, pricing, but even more specifically, we're going to talk about the value of our courses. Because I think that this is something that I know that this is something that is very confusing for course creators. And I know that some people are tempted to toss the whole concept of value out the window. And we're going to dig into why value is so valuable, and how to a couple of different ways to approach it. And like I said, this is always kind of a challenge. Pricing our courses, pricing our programs is tricky to begin with. We can dig into that a little bit more, but just fundamentally, it is very difficult to price our programs. There's all kinds of self-worth stuff wrapped in there, business worth stuff wrapped in there, fear that people aren't going to be willing to pay for something, fear that people can't pay for something, our audience can't pay for something, and then adding the value factor on top of that makes it even more complicated. But one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this, besides the fact that it's something that we talk about in the CSS Facebook group and on our calls, is that I actually just heard a podcast in which the guest, I believe, was saying, "Oh, we don't even mention the value of the course. We just give people the price of the course. We don't talk about value because value is so inflated and so made up anyway." And I think that is a very misguided decision to make. I understand the idea of wanting to get rid of the value, or I should say the price attached to the value, because it can be a little bit ethereal, hard to nail down. But the thing is that the price of our courses is hard to nail down. When we're coming up with the prices of our courses, of our programs, it's a lot of it is choosing a number that we are comfortable selling at. And then as we get more and more into business and we see that our audience will pay that, then we increase prices just a little bit more, and more and more and more until we go, yes, okay, this is much more of the correct price. And then of course, probably we end up increasing prices periodically thereafter as just the general market increases. And as we get more experience and as people are using our programs and we get more testimonials and all of that kind of thing. So I think that maybe the first thing to nail down is just that the concept of pricing our courses to begin with is not an exact science anyway. So to say, we're going to get rid of the concept of pricing our value because it's not an exact science, it would mean that, okay, well then we can't have any prices at all because it's not an exact science. So it's a flawed argument to begin with when it comes to value.
Yeah. And I think one of the other reasons that price feels maybe a little slightly less nebulous than value, because we have to do it. If you want if someone to buy your product, it's a need, right? But because that you can use this number, it's going to be the number that you plan all of your business goals around and your revenue goals around. So you can say, okay, if it costs me this much for someone to acquire a customer and this much, this is the percentage of leads that turn into customers, and all of those sorts of metrics that you're measuring, that can help you adjust the price in a way that makes it, okay, this is the profit margin that I want. And so to make that amount of profit, here's what I need to have the price of my offer be based on all of my expenses and what. There are more numbers and more information that you can use to kind of set that price in a way that allows you to hit those revenue goals. Whereas with value, it's not, as we've established, it's not necessary. It's smart to do, and we'll get into why and the steps to take to figure it out. But because there's more work to be done to dig into the value in some ways, because you actually have to sit down, and to Nicki's point, all of the stuff that kicks up of what is my program worth? I created it. Do I feel like this is really, I think it's really valuable, but does anyone else going to feel like it's really this valuable? And what is it truly going to do for someone that isn't necessarily, it might be tied to a financial goal, certainly, but it also might be tied to just maybe more life goals of making someone's life easier, better, or smoother. And how do you put a dollar amount to that? And so I think it takes a lot more work and sitting down with it, and it won't come as fast, I guess, is all that's to say.
Exactly. And one of the things that we teach in the circuit sales system is we talk about the concept of value and also the real world pricing context. And we'll talk about exactly why we do that in just a second. But fundamentally, the things that we sell have to be worth so much more than the price that we charge for them. Right. First of all, it has to feel like a deal for someone in order to make that purchase. If it feels like if we are selling something, and obviously this is kind of a funny example, but if we're selling something that says, you will earn $4,000 with this program, and we sell that for $4,000, no one's going to buy it because they end up with a net zero. I'm going to earn $4,000, but I have to pay $4,000 to get that. It's so incredibly uncompelling. No one would buy that. We have to instead show them all of the ways that these programs are going to benefit them, which we do, of course, and then quantify that as much as we can, and then also have the price be so much less than that. Now, here's the thing when it comes to value. The actual real world value of our programs is often so much more than people would even truly believe. And which is where we kind of get into the real world pricing contracts. But like even the circuit sales system, for example, we sell a program that could very easily transform someone's business from being a six-figure business to a seven-figure business. Absolutely. And that's just, and we certainly have, we are a multi seven figure per year business. I know that many of our students will get to multi seven figures per year. So even just saying $1 million, right? Let's say it's worth $1 million, and that's $1 million in 1 year. Okay. How many times, or how long are you going to stay in business? Are you going to stay in business 20 years, 30 years? So truly, I mean, literally our course, and this is just an example with our course, but our course is worth at least 20 or 30 million dollars, right? But if we in this video were to, or in our emails or on any of our messaging said, oh yeah, buy this course, it's worth 30 to 90 million dollars, and at least 30 to 90 million dollars, people would go, you are out of your mind. Exactly. Oh, it's worth 30 million dollars.
Okay.
Now, truly, when you step it back and go, oh, actually, it is worth 30 to 90 million dollars. But if I were to put that in any of our messaging, people would think that we have lost it, that we are out of our minds. So one of the things that we teach, so we teach the concept of value, but again, we can't, if we gave the literal value of our programs, and this is not just the case for things that will earn you money.
Yeah, I think an example of not something that's directly tied to income and job and that sort of thing is anything productivity related. So productivity courses that help you manage your time better on your calendar, or help you have a system within your house for organizing your closet, or where you put your keys and having, the flow of your organization in your life be streamlined. But even that, over the course of a lifetime, that's going to teach you skills that you literally use from whenever you take the course through the rest of your life. And so the time saved as part of that productivity system, and if you put a dollar then to your time to even say, okay, my hourly value is worth $100 or whatever it is, you can calculate out then, okay, if this saves me 5 hours a week, 10 hours a month, whatever the number is, you can put an actual monetary value to something like that.
Exactly. And even, are these people spending money on other systems? Are these people spending money on trackers when they lose their keys? Are these people spending money on organizational, I'm thinking container store in my head, that kind of, like all these things that they're trying to solve the problem. Like weight loss is another great example where you're spending all this money on things that are trying to solve the problem, but they never actually solve the problem. And I think in all of our industries, our audiences have been spending money on things to try to solve the problem. that haven't solved the problem. So when we do finally solve the problem, they don't have to spend all of that money anymore. And that is a saving. That is so we're talking about the concept of real world pricing context. This is, if you have a $500 or $1,000 home organization course, and they would normally be spending thousands every year, or they'd be bringing in a home organizer, or the cost of bringing in a home organizer to get the same results would be 10 times that. Or then you can actually stack up if you spent, this is $1,000 course. If you had a home organizer come in once a year for every fall to organize, and they were, $2,000 a time, you are literally saving X amount. I know that I could do that math, but I choose not to. It's Friday. When we're recording it, it's Friday. But you can put the context of the savings, no matter what you do. And I know some people are like, well, but I coach people through breakups, or I coach people through, there's always some kind of monetary value. And we're not saying by any means that you're just talking about the monetary benefits, because you will, at least you should be, as you're selling your program, you're going to be digging into the benefits. You're going to be digging into the positive ways that their lives are going to transform. You're going to dig into the negative feelings that they're not going to feel anymore. So it's not just about money. But it is beneficial for you to talk about the emotional benefits, but also to talk about the monetary benefits, because this is how some people work. Some people need to see the numbers broken down for them. Okay, well, if I have this experience, I'm going to be saving time, money, energy in all of these ways, and they want to see the numbers broken down. And I guarantee that no matter what industry you're in, there are financial ramifications of them not solving the problem that you help them solve. So when you show them those financial ramifications, it makes it that much more justifiable for them to purchase your program. So that's where we get into kind of the real world pricing context. And that's one element that you're going to use. But we still also recommend that you break down the value of your program, as in, this is the main part of the program and the value is X amount. This is this bonus and the value is X amount. This is the bonus number 2 and the value of this bonus is X amount. And then all together, the value of the program is whatever it ends up being. Exactly. And the reason it's so important to assign a value, and generally you want your value to be like 10x what the cost of your program is. The reason it's so important is because, number one, again, we can't tell them if we tried to tell them the true actual value of the program, it would be like it would be unbelievable. Even if it's weight loss, even if it's productivity. I mean, to have a productivity solution for the rest of your life. I mean, how could you possibly even put a number on that people would believe? I mean, it would be worth truly to be able to be productive every day of your life with that system. That is worth millions. We can't say that to people. They're not going to understand it. We need to put it in numbers that they understand.
Especially too, if you offer something like all of our programs offer some level of coaching, monthly coaching calls, and some sort of student only Facebook group, and so they have this ongoing lifetime support for the lifetime of our course, which is frankly invaluable to have other people going through what you're going through and to be able to ask your questions with experts on the call once or twice a month is just incredible.
Incredibly valuable. And again, I think part of what people resist is that when we're choosing a value for our program, it is very amorphous. There's nothing you can point at and justify. This is the exact value. Even in a coaching call, the exact value of the coaching call. Well, it's worth this coach's amount of time, but also all these people are getting their questions answered, and you might hear a question from someone else. It's very hard to nail that number down. And I do think that that's part of what people are pushing back against when it comes to value. But it's so important to have value because we need that higher price anchor to help your actual cost of your program have context and feel valuable. When you say the value and you list everything out and you talk about the value of everything and you say the value of this program is $14,000. And again, because you've done the thinking, the true value is probably worth at least 10, 20 times that, if not more. But you're saying, all right, you put a stake in this, I was going to say stake in the sand, line in the sand, stake in the ground.
But a stake in the sand.
Stake in the sand. Throw a shrimp on the Barbie. When you put a stake in the ground and say, this is the value, it helps them understand just how valuable your program is. And you've listed out all of the elements. So when you finally get to the point of, all right, that's the value, because they then in their heads, they have, $14,000. They have that number in their heads. When you get to the point where you say, but the price that you're going to pay today, that's the value, but that's not what you're going to pay. The price that you're going to pay, or the investment that you can make, is, $1,400, $1,397, or however you want to do it. We'll just say $1,400 just for the sake of it. It because they had the 14,000 anchored in their head, it makes that 1,400 seem so much more reasonable, which, by the way, it is. It is, because your program is so incredibly valuable. But if you don't have an anchor, if you are not the person who sets that anchor, what you have is someone going through all of your marketing materials and trying to guess at what their anchor is. And their context is not your context. You have all the context of the entire industry. You have all the context of what they're spending and their frustrations and all of that kind of stuff. You have the full context. So when you set it at 1,400, that is based on your knowledge. But when someone is going into a program, they are always going to, and we all do this, right? When we're getting a presentation or we're getting emails, or even sometimes, Kate, you and I were talking about a sweater the other day.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, and when you say, oh, that's so cute, how much was it? Instantly, even before I get the answer from you, I'm guessing in my head how much I think it's going to be. But I have no context. I don't know. All I can see is the sweater, which looks nice. I can't even feel the sweater. We're on Zoom. I can't tell the quality. I can't tell the brand, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what we all do. As soon as we're interested in something, we start guessing in our heads. And because our context is our little lives, not the bigger context, we are going to be guessing something that's probably a lot lower.
Yeah.
And the problem then is that the anchor in our heads is not based in reality. The anchor in our heads is based on our life experiences, and maybe even just a recent experience. Back to the sweater example, if I had been looking at sweaters that morning and had been looking at $50, $60 sweaters, now we should just tell, Kate was wearing one of the Jenny Kane sweaters, which are beautiful, but these are not cheap sweaters. Yeah, that sweater was a $295 sweater.
Bucks, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
and I'm not gonna lie, I'm still considering it because it's just exactly right. But if that morning I had been looking at sweaters that were $50, $60, then when you said, and that's the number that's in my head, then when you said $295, I go, whoa, that's way too expensive. Whereas if I had been looking at other sweaters that were maybe $500, $550, $600 sweaters, when you tell me it's a $295 sweater, I might go, oh, well, okay. Or had some content like, oh, yes, but this sweater is going to last forever. This is going to last 10 times as long as a $60 sweater or something. When I have that context, then it makes it easier to understand why the price is actually a deal, why it's a value.
Yeah, and we can't assume that our customers are going to even take the time to consider the worth of whatever your offer is. So if you haven't told them, they're not going to spend, they might see that price then say, okay, I'm out, because they don't understand then what a bargain it is. They don't understand what a deal they're getting unless you tell them. And so, yeah, they're not gonna spend the time to do that. But the other thing I want to mention too is that the goal of price anchoring is not that we're showing a fake price and then showing like a sale price, like, ooh, look at this deal you're getting. The point of price anchoring and showing the value is to really understand that people understand that this purchase is worth it. So back to the point of like, they're not going to figure out if it's worth it or not. If I hadn't told Nicki that my sweater, the quality was really good, it's the perfect oversized fit, all of these things about it that make it worth that $295 price tag, she was going to buy it. And obviously, I mean, even frankly, the website, not to throw them under the bus, but like, I didn't know if it was worth it. I purchased another sweater from them that I didn't think was as good of a quality. And this is definitely a risk for me. And the only reason I did was because I was like, well, I can return it if it's not what I want.
Yeah.
But you need to give that context so that people understand, oh wow, this is a deal. I'm getting so much more than what I'm paying for. It's an incredible value, and they feel good then about making the purchase. They feel excited about making the purchase. They feel extra motivated to make it right now versus waiting, because they understand what a deal they're getting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The price on its own, the price of anything on its own is not enough for people to understand the value. When it comes down to it, we will buy things that we want badly enough. When we perceive the value to be so high as compared to the price, especially high as compared to the price, we will buy it. I think sometimes people think, well, they'll only pay $97 for this. No, there people might pay $5,000 for that result. They might pay $10,000 for that result and happily do it. We don't know what's in people's heads. The only thing that we can do is give them some guidance as to the true value. And again, we talk about the value, but then we also talk about the real world pricing context. We give them both of those points so that people can really understand it. But we buy stuff on a regular basis that when you actually, I come back to again and again.
The new
iPhone, which has yours shown up yet?
No,
Is it
today.
It's coming today.
Yeah. Embarrassed to say,
yeah.
Toxic relationship with Apple, but I still bought it.
You still bought it, and you're excited to get it, and it is expensive. These are expensive pieces of glass, that are basically designed to break unless you buy a case and buy all this like wrapping in bubble wrap. But because we value it, you value that the camera is going to be that much better. You value that it's going to be reliable and dependable, and you value all of these elements of it. The other one that I always come back to is college. People pay sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars for college, and there's no guaranteed outcome. But the value is so high still, and who knows if it always will be, but the value right now is still so high that people do that and they go into debt for that. And I'm not saying that they should by any means, but we know that the programs that we offer are actually valuable, and that the people who purchase from us, when they take the actions in our programs, of course, they will get the results that we are offering. They will get these transformations. So to just give them the price, to say, oh yeah, you're gonna get this, and the price is $997, or the price is $2,997, or or $5,000 or whatever, it's not enough for them to understand, especially if watching your whole presentation, they're going, I wonder how much they're going to charge. I bet they're going to charge. I bet they're going to charge 600. I bet it's going to be a 600. And and who knows what that's based on, right? Oh, I bet it's going to be a $600 program. I bet it's going to be a $600 program. If they get to the end and it's a $5,000 program, they're going to go, whoa, that's way more expensive. Way more expensive than what? Just the idea that they had in their head, because we let them have that idea first. Whereas if we had broken out the program and said, look, you get this, and this is worth this, and this is worth this whole program is worth 50 grand. What you're going to pay is 5 grand. Then it's, oh, okay, wait a minute, because they had the 50 grand in their head. And then also too, when we break out the pricing context, look, if you put this into action in a year, you earn or you save X amount, this program will have paid for itself 10 times over within the first year. When we show people this, when we give them that context, it makes it so much easier for them to justify making the valuable purchase that is our programs.
And I think one of the things that we've been saying without saying, but it bears being very explicit about, is that you're giving them the value first before you present any price and put the price on the table, because of everything we've just talked about. If you show them a price before you've broken out the value, before they've truly understood the worth of your program, then you've lost them most likely. They're not going to stick around to figure it out. To Nicki's point, if they already have something in their mind, whether on a conscious or unconscious level, there is already something. So when they see it, might be like, okay, that doesn't line up with what I thought. Versus if you guide them through it first and break down all of these things that they need to know before they see that price to really truly understand why that price is what it is, then you're not going to lose those folks.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's everybody comes from such different backgrounds that we can't know what's going on in their heads. I was having a conversation with someone at an event, and he was telling me about a mastermind that he was in, and I was just curious. I'm always interested in hearing what's going on, and he's like, "Well, but it's really expensive." And I was like, "Oh, okay, what is really expensive?" And I said, "Oh, what is it?" And he said, "Oh, it's 25,000." And I went, "Oh, okay." Because I've been in masterminds that are 25,000. So for me, that's actually kind of like the base level, right? So in his head, he's thinking that that's expensive. And I was getting, and he was making the assumption that I was going to go, "Whoa, it's way too expensive." Whereas for me, I was like, "Oh, that's what I would have expected to pay. If it had been less, it would have been a deal. If it had been more, maybe then." But we're not in our clients' heads. We can't possibly know what expectation they're going in with. So what we need to do is help them set that expectation by giving them that value. And again, Kate, to your point, we give them that higher first because that's where we want to anchor them. We want to anchor them with a higher idea of what it's all worth. If we'd gone in and said, "Well, other programs that are similar to this are $297, but this program is $5,000," people would go, "Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? There's no way I'm going to pay this." But when we say, "Look, all of this is worth, the value of this program is worth 50,000 and the cost is 5,000," it's that much more easier to make it palatable for people, to keep their minds open to making the decision. And again, we're not doing any of this to be tricky. We're not doing any of this. We're doing it to give people perspective and to give them the ability to make a more informed decision.
Two of the things to dig into for your value are, one, considering the return on investment that reasonably someone could make within the first few months or the first year or two. If it helps kind of narrow down that like very big nebulous thinking of, well, over the course of their lifetime, how do I even go down that route? And then on the other hand too, though, the amount of time, energy, your knowledge, your expertise that you've put into creating this program, I feel like there's always something that goes around about a plumber or whatever, and a plumber's rates, and it's like, here's the cost, and people are like, "Well, I could just do that myself." And then when you break it down, it's like, well, if you had to learn how to actually become a plumber, and if you had to, I was going to say plumbing school, but however you go about, learning all of the, 10 years of seeing all of these things out in the world and having that experience of knowing how to diagnose a problem and all of these things that you learn with whatever it is that you do, that would cost someone so much more to get to the place that you're at with your knowledge and your skills. And so using that as a factor as well to say, okay, well, here's the value of everything, all the knowledge and information I've put into my program that would cost someone, especially if they could go to college. We talked about college, our comprehensive copywriting program, there are ad schools. People can go pay $40,000+ a year to go to a portfolio school. And granted, those schools aren't even teaching half of what we teach in terms of finding and landing clients. You're putting together a portfolio. It's only one piece of the puzzle. But that alone is, I think, a great example of, okay, you can pay $40,000 for this, or our program, which is much a fraction of the price. So
yeah, exactly. And remembering too that yes, maybe someone is not going to go to school to learn. Maybe they're not going to get licensed as a plumber in that example, but your program is saving them all of the time and effort and the very likely mistakes that they would make. You're saving them all of that because you have that expertise going into it. Yeah. It's kind of getting back to pricing and value. Again, there is no exact science. Sometimes our CSS students will say, "Well, I don't know. What do you think about this? Is this the right number? Is this not the right number?" The thing is there is no right number. When it comes to pricing your course, when it comes to the value, there's no right number. There's just, okay, you know what? I'm gonna start here. And then maybe from there, maybe you raise your price. Maybe this is the number I'm going to start with. And then as I see people purchasing, and then, all right, then I'm going to gradually increase my price. that's fine. But there's no magical number. The one piece of caution that I will give when it comes to pricing your services and when it comes to figuring out your value is to not judge by what your competitors are charging.
Mm.
By any means. I hear a lot of like people saying, well, a similar course to this charges $290. I was going to charge $997, but I saw a couple other similar courses and they're charging $297. What other people are charging should have very, very little bearing on what you charge. Number one, because you are selling a totally different program. Right? You're not, if you were selling the exact same program as they are, then first of all, I'd say, why are you in business? But second of all, I would say, well, yes, you have to sell, or maybe you have to sell a little bit less to get some of their purchasers, but you are selling a totally different program. Also, it's often the lowest priced programs where you can immediately see the price, where you go to their website and you can see, oh, they're charging I could buy it now. It's, it's on Evergreen. I could buy it now for $297. There are likely many of your competitors who gate that pricing, where you have to opt in and you have to wait for their launch to find out how much the program actually is. And it's a $5,000 program, something along those lines. So you doing a cursory search, a cursory initial search should have no bearing on your price, on top of the fact that you are offering a totally different program. You have a different type of expertise, even if it's not a different level of expertise,
Mm-hmm.
you have a different type of expertise. You bring things to the table that your competitors don't. So do not use your competitors, and even if they're, just people you found on the internet, do not use their pricing as a gauge for what you should be charging. And I understand that it's like, well, if they're charging that, I guess the market will pay that. First of all, you don't know that. You don't know if the market's even buying. The market might be getting to their page and going, oh, $297? How can this be quality if they're only charging $297 for this? I'm not interested. So you can't make any assumptions at all about people's programs, and you can't make any assumptions about whether or not people are even buying those programs. Just because it's for sale doesn't mean people are making purchases. Okay, so like we said, there are coming up with the pricing and coming up with the value and the real world pricing it can be a little tricky. It's a little bit more, there's no, I guess, kind of as with business, a lot of things in business, there's no perfect formula to do it right. But that also should be good news, because there is no perfect formula. And also it's changeable. If you start selling something at $997 and people are buying it and they're saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe all the stuff I get in this program. This is amazing. Then maybe you can, all right, so maybe in a couple of months, I'm going to increase it to $1197 or whatever.
Or as you add new content to your program, or you add more offerings, as we have with most of our courses. And I think that example is great. We had one student who was like, oh, I 100x my investment in this course in the first month. And so that additional, listen to your customers and what they're saying, because that might give you additional context for what your value really is. You might be, most people I feel like are undervaluing, not overvaluing. It's always the danger. So listen and keep an eye out for what it's true, the impact it's truly making on people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So it's tricky, right? It's not easy, but just because it's not easy doesn't mean that you should throw out elements of the pricing structure that give people better insight into your program, give better context into your program, and give them allow them to make a more informed decision. And that's what adding the value in does. You're not doing it to trick people. You're not doing it to be nefarious in any way, shape, or mean. You're adding it to give them a number to help them understand a little bit more solidly, just a touch more solidly, what the potential could be. And then, of course, as our CSS students know, we also talk about the actual real world pricing context. So we give people both of these to help them understand, oh, wait, this program is really worth it. This is a deal. This is a bargain. And that helps them make the decision to purchase. So not easy, but worth it. Do not take value, the monetary value. Don't take that out of your sales presentations, emails, any of that kind of stuff. Okay, so hopefully some stuff to think about, maybe even some stuff to add back into your messaging, but also very valuable, valuable information. And so with that, we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Do you want to learn how to sell and scale your offer on autopilot every single day without the chaos of live launching or the low conversions of Evergreen? Who doesn't, right? Get our free on-demand video training at circuitsalessystem.com/free. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you never miss a video. We'll catch you next time.